often as human beings, we feel the pain. And we're like, oh, I feel pain. This is pain. This is pain. This is pain. We rationalize it away. This is pain. We drug it away, drink it away, sex it away, smoke it away, social media away, shop it away, work it away, whatever, to not feel the pain. But pain is there for a reason. To me, pain isn't good or bad. It's a gift. It's your friend.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us. Here we are, Switch for Good podcast. I'm Dotsie here with Alexandra. And so many of you who listen to the podcast have been extraordinarily gracious and kind in letting me know that you're enjoying me reading some of my snippets from my prescriptive memoir that I am in the midst of writing. It's been a wild, a wonderful and terrifying experience writing this book. And I am starting to actually feel excited about sharing it with you all when it is ready, because y'all have really kept me going, saying, that what you like, what you don't like, what I should edit, what I should bring out, what more you want to hear, just all of it. So first of all, I just want to communicate gratefulness to our just wonderful podcast audience that tunes in every week, listens to our banter, and then hopefully learns something from all of our extraordinary guests. So I am going to read an excerpt in front of this, mind-blowing guest that we have on today, who is a spiritual guru, and maybe just press fast forward to get to him. But if you are so inclined, I am going to read what could potentially be the opener for the book. So think of it in those terms, and please email me podcast@switchforgood.org. I'd love to hear from you if you think this is right on the mark or not, and what you would change. All right, without further ado, here we go. I was standing on the Olympic podium, feeling the one emotion I hadn't expected to feel: relief. After almost losing my life just 15 years prior, after treatment centers, drug binges, jail, surviving abuse, both self-inflicted and from others, after suicide attempts and getting high off ritualistically counting my protruding ribs on a daily basis, here I was, standing on the Olympic podium. It felt muggy and hot. The Pringle was almost 85 degrees inside. That's what they called the track at the Olympic Games in London in 2012. It was hot on purpose so that as many world records as possible would come out of it. The British had just broken the world record again in our final ride against them for gold. They were a powerful threesome: Laura Trott, the phenom, Danny King, the machine, and Joanna Roswell, the enforcer, or at least that's how I viewed them. And these three teenagers had forgotten their podium outfits. That's right. In every Olympic Games, each country is given a podium outfit or podium clothing, so that the swimmers don't have to stand on the podium in their wet bathing suits. And so, none of us have to stand on the podium soaked in our own sweat. It is an honor to get to change into the Olympic podium outfit. But since the British had somehow forgotten to bring theirs that evening, we all had to stay dressed in our wet chamois, which is the cycling term for the cushiony material that protects our privates from the hard saddle we grind on while racing, which is sewed into a skin-tight skin suit we wear for aerodynamics. We were not exactly stoked to have to wear the tightest piece of clothing we had ever owned, which in order to zip up, we had to hold our breath on the podium from which photos we would treasure our entire lives were taken. The Canadians, the bronze medalists, were kind of pissed about it too. But no time for crying about what we were going to wear. It was time to receive our Olympic medals. And so after many, many years of hating my body, after destroying it, after beating it up, it had completely regenerated into an Olympic level machine. And I was proud of that. Love pulsed through my veins in the form of a plant-based diet instead of death, i.e. animal foods. I felt vindicated. I had fueled myself with plants. And now I was standing here at the Olympics at 39 and a half, the oldest ever in my discipline to even make it to the Olympic Games. I felt strong. I felt powerful. And I felt proud of myself. I'm often asked how it felt to be up there on that podium, and that's always an answer that I give the same every time. I say I felt relief. Although, honestly, that never seems to satisfy anyone. But what most people don't understand is that the run up to the Olympics is a week, it's a month, it's a year, it's 3 years, it's a lifetime. And that buildup is filled with so many emotions: fear, thrill, loneliness, exhaustion, being in fight mode and not knowing how or when to come out, confusion, elation, and self-loathing. So when it ends, when it really truly is over, and I knew it and it went my way, well, relief is all that I could feel. And it's not the kind of relief that's like, phew, I aced that test, or phew, I didn't get pulled over after drinking too much, or phew, I didn't miss my flight. It's a relief like the best line of cocaine you've ever snorted in your life, if you've done so. The kind of relief that is so intoxicating and so physical, your heart stops racing and your gut stops gurgling and your mind calms and you feel pure and total bliss, like you are floating on clouds and everyone around you is looking at you and wondering what you are feeling and why can't they feel that way too. Relief is kind of a funny feeling because it's probably not in anyone's top 10. You don't think you want to feel relieved more than you want to feel happy or satisfied or rich or funny. But when total relief sweeps over you, it's mesmerizing. To this day, I have never felt relief like I did in that moment on the podium at the Olympics. And as you know by now, we didn't win gold. We won silver, which means we got to stare at our beautiful American flag while listening to God Save the Queen, which had its moments of disdain and awkwardness, given my ancestors escaped the British monarchy to come to a new land and create their own version of a democratic government. The British national anthem sounds a lot like it should, stodgy and dry with no big star-bursting moments like the Star-Spangled Banner has. So the mood actually felt a little bit melancholy to us. But what was on my mind was not the music playing nor the fact that a Beatle, i.e. Paul McCartney, was in the stands and we had just listened to him and the entire Pringle crowd sing Hey Jude. What was on my mind was the fact that I didn't get to this middle step of the podium alone. And since that was the case, why was I standing there alone? All that with my teammates, but without any of the remarkable humans that helped me to chart my course and stood by me when things looked very bleak and dreary. Where was Jamie, my first coach, who made me ride the See Me ride long before I had any ability to finish it? Where was Scott, my messenger friend who taught me how to jump curbs on bikes? Where was Chris, who literally gave me my bike wings? Where was Joe, who paid for some of my therapy when I couldn't afford it without ever asking for anything in return? Where was Eric, my coach, who told me to go to the track for the very first time because he knew it was going to pay off? Where was my mom, my dad, my sister, my rock, my husband? We should have all been there in pyramid formation, I thought. That would have been a hoot. Mom, dad, sis, and hubby, they were in the stands, but I wanted them in the middle, on the stand with me, arm in arm, heart to heart, soaking up this relief. I thought back to Bob Myers, my horse trainer, who verbally abused me so badly at such a young age. My mother asked me every single week if I was sure I didn't want to change trainers. I always told her, no, I don't mind it, Mom. It's building my toughness. A bit of an odd sentiment coming from a 9-year-old. But had he built my toughness, or had I built my toughness in response to him? I was old enough now and wise enough now to look back and realize it was probably both. Every encounter I had in the topless bar with men that told me I would do something real big someday, every coach who told me I wasn't good enough, every friend who told me to get up again and keep going, every single time I felt invisible, every time my husband told me not to quit, every glare I had received from the snobby women on the national team when I first started, and every single time my mom told me I could do anything I set my heart to. Well, it all came flooding back in that moment of the greatest relief of my life in London on August 4th of 2012. All right, I think it needs some work. What does it need? What do I need to change? What do I need to redevelop? What do I need to tell more of? What do I need to cut? You guys are awesome. I think you are going to absolutely fall in love with Kute Blackson, who is up next, one of my favorite guests of all time. All right, enjoy. Today, we welcome Kute Blackson, an inspirational speaker and transformational teacher. Kute offers a fresh, unique look at spiritual awareness and is going to help us unlock our own true gifts and greatness. Born in Ghana, West Africa, Kute's multicultural upbringing as the child of a Japanese mother and a Ghanaian father has spanned 4 different continents. He first spoke at age 8 in front of a congregation of 3,000 and then went on to speak in over 300 venues by age 18. Fast forward to today, and he has been featured on Larry King, Now, NPR, and more. Inc. magazine called him the mindfulness guru billionaires go to for advice. Kute has been connecting with people all over the world for 20 plus years. His mission is simple: to awaken and inspire people across the planet to access inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Welcome to the Switch for Good podcast, Kute.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Wow. Okay. So as I just mentioned in the intro, we have a lot to traverse today. You were raised all over the world, literally on 4 different continents, but you had always dreamed of a life in America. You won a green card just after finishing school in London, and you came to America, I think just a few months later, with 0 connections or prospects, I guess, is what we read. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you know one in the country. Literally showed up with 2 suitcases, 1 suitcase full of clothes, $800, a dream and a vision to inspire people, and 1 suitcase full of self-help books and audio tapes that I grew up listening to. And that was my companion and my inspiration, so to speak. And so just showed up. Yeah, won a green card in the lottery. And basically I was supposed to, take over. My father is a minister and a healer. My first memories as a young boy literally was seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on. My father wipes it on her face and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear and people stand up out of wheelchairs. My father would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair? You're not sick, stand up." Boom, she would stand up. So I grew up in this environment as a kid of miracles. And for me, it didn't seem that unusual. It didn't seem extraordinary. It just seemed normal. And so I grew up in this environment, and I was supposed to take over my father's churches. And at 14, started, as you mentioned, age 8, started speaking. Age 14, I was ordained as a minister, given the mandate to take over my father's organization. We're talking about 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, a huge church in London, hundreds of thousands of maybe 400,000 people at the height of my father's ministry. So there was a lot of expectation, a lot of hopes, a lot of pressure that was put on me as a young man. But when it was announced, and this is kind of what brought me to the US, when it was announced at 14, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to inspire people. I knew I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. But I knew that that wasn't my path in terms of religion, in terms of a church, in terms of an organization. Nothing wrong with that, but I just felt that that wasn't my destiny in this life. And the thing is, I was too afraid at the age of 14 to speak my truth. My fear was if I dared to be who I really am, if I dared to speak my truth, if I dared to tell my father how I really felt, that I would be outcast, I'd be alone, I'd be abandoned. And so for 4 years, I said nothing. And I think so many of us as human beings, we allow fear to hijack us and hijack our dreams, hijack our creative expression, hijack the giving of our gifts. And for 4 years, I lived in fear. I said nothing. But I got to the point at 18, right before I won my green card and came to the US, where I had to make a decision. I looked into my future and I realized that I could follow the expected path. I could take over my father's church. I could be successful by everyone else's standards. But if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my truth, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my integrity, what kind of success is that? And as I projected into my future, age 20, age 30, age 40, age 50, I literally felt such a deep pain of self-betrayal. I felt like I was committing a soul suicide, so to speak. And the pain was so deep that I knew in that moment what I had to do. And simultaneously, I grew up reading all of these self-help books, all of the Eastern mystics to the Western, like the Wayne Dyers of the world, the Deepak Chopras, the Marianne Williamson, so to speak. And I felt this calling to come to America. I felt something pulling me. I felt my soul calling me, and I wanted to go into this field, and I wanted to inspire people. And so I knew I had to speak to my father, and I had to speak up and speak my truth. And it was terrifying. I was so terrified. And, I had the conversation with him. And that's what really brought me to the US, and we didn't speak for 2 years, and that's what led me to win the green card. And so it was
so your dad then basically it's kind of didn't give you full permission to seek this out. You didn't speak for 2 years, so you spoke to your dad and you asked him kind of for his blessing, and it was you
didn't really ask him for his blessing. I just kind of, because I knew what I had to do. I knew that my soul was calling me,
right?
And I negotiated it, and I denied it, and I suppressed it, and I rationalized it away, and this knowing didn't go away. And so when I had that conversation with him, I was terrified, but it wasn't so much asking for permission. It was just letting him know that I wasn't taking over, and I was hoping for his blessing. I was hoping for his support. But to be honest, before I had the conversation, I had already let him go. And that was part of the heartbreak, but also the freedom, because I had already made peace that I would never have a relationship with him again. And so I wasn't surprised when we didn't speak, because I kind of expected it. And yet it was hard, for an 18-year-old kid. It was like my father was my everything, my icon. Even though we weren't close, he was an iconic guy. And so I knew I was going to be breaking his heart. I knew he was an old school kind of guy who is sort of like my way or my way you choose. And it was one of the hardest decisions of my life, because it felt like in honoring myself, I was betraying my father. And that was really difficult. And that was really challenging. And so it was a tremendous, for me, act of owning my life and owning my power, because it was me giving myself permission to follow my soul. And sometimes I think what your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your conscious mind, and is often not convenient. But what I really felt, and what I really believe, and what I've seen over the years is, if you follow your soul and don't compromise, if you truly follow and honor your soul's knowing, this intelligence, you will always be guided to the right place with the right people at the right time, even though the route that you take may not be the one that you most expect. And so that's when the green card happened.
What is the difference between your father's philosophy and your philosophy? Because he was so powerful. He had 300 churches, and you said one in London too, and hundreds of thousands of followers. If you had a strong desire to help people change, you had a ready-made foundation right
there.
All there.
The plate was laid out.
Right. So what was your father's religion? And
Yeah.
what is the path that you now
Okay.
follow spiritually?
I think it's a combination of things, because luckily, my father went to India in the 60s. And so he had a lot of spiritual experiences, meditating, and my father was a very open-minded mystic. He was a very open-minded, mystical, metaphysical, spiritual being. And on his bookshelf were a lot of sort of Eastern mystics, Krishnamurti and Osho and Ramana Maharishi, and Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. And so my father was very open, and that was a huge blessing. And so from that philosophy standpoint, he was very spiritual in nature. So I consider myself more spiritual in nature. My mother's Japanese. My mother's a Buddhist. She grew up Buddhist. And so I grew up with a very open, eclectic, sort of spiritual philosophy, so to speak. And so the thing with my father was two things. Number one, I just felt my soul was meant for something different. I just felt that my soul and my dharma, my purpose, was meant to express differently and not necessarily through a structure of religion or organization. That's just what I felt. It was clear. It was a deep knowing inside of me. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, my father was considered a miracle worker. He was considered the miracle man of Africa. And one thing, I guess you could say philosophically, that I had a difference in was a lot of his congregation wanted the miracles. A lot of his congregation got kind of dependent on, give me the miracle. Wow, he's going to do some healing. Like, do it to me. Give me the miracle. And I felt as though there was an abdication of power, an abdication of responsibility, an abdication of one's true inner power to something or someone outside of oneself, in a certain sense. And one of the challenges I had that I never spoke to my father about was I felt that he didn't really, if you give a man a fish, you will teach him, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. And so for me, I didn't feel that he really taught people the principles. He didn't really teach people the mindset for transformation, the mindset for, you could say, deeper trust, for deeper surrender, for deeper faith. And so I felt that there was a dependency happening on the miracles and the miracle man, rather than turning people inward to find their own inner truth through a process of prayer and meditation, etc. And so that was a shift that I also didn't like. But most of all, I felt a different calling. I just knew my destiny was in America. I would literally, at age 11, 12, we lived behind my father's church, and I would sneak into my father's church in the middle of the night as a 12-year-old kid. And I don't even know why, but I would speak to the empty chairs, imagining and visualizing I was giving seminars in ballrooms in San Diego, because I read this is where Louis Hay lived. And so there was something in my soul that was pulling me in a different direction. And all I knew was I had to honor that. I had to honor that.
So you've created your own method, and it's a process that liberates the individual and the true self at the core. And this certainly is a process that helps individuals, people get in touch with who they really are. It's kind of a process of breaking free so that we can live and give and share the truest expression of ourselves. But how do we ever even get disconnected from that? Why aren't we, when we're born, in touch with ourselves? We know who we are when we're little tiny. What are the scenarios that unfold that get us so disconnected from ourselves?
Yeah, I think when we're born, ultimately, no matter what happens, there is always that part of us that is free. There's always the part of us that is free. We're never not free. We just kind of lose touch with the freedom that is always present, with the freedom that is our true reality. We get conditioned, then we get seduced, then we get brainwashed, then we get hypnotized, then we get programmed. And through life and pain and hurt and trauma, as we start losing touch with the perfectionist inside of us. So, if you look at a child, right, when we're born into this beautiful world, into this existence, as children, as babies, we're in touch with our divine existence. We're in touch with our true essence. We're in touch with our infinite nature. We're in touch with our unconditioned light that is unconditioned in nature. A child will jump on the table and they will sing and they will dance, and they don't care what you think. They don't care if they can't sing or if they don't sound great. They don't have this self-consciousness. Am I good? Am I bad? What do you think? They will just like be. They're just radiating pure energy. You know, they don't care if they're fat. They don't care if they're not Adele or Bruno Mars. And so what happens? We're born into a preset framework of conditioning, some of which is dysfunction and trauma. We meet our parents, that's one. And our parents, they're just doing the best that they can do based on their conditioning, most of which they're unconscious of, that was passed down to them from their parents and all the way back through generations. And so we're born into a preset framework of conditioning. And maybe dad was an alcoholic, or mom had mental health issues, or dad had mental health issues. Maybe they were fighting all the time. Maybe there was divorce. Maybe there was abandonment. Maybe they were just great people, but emotionally, they didn't know how to meet our needs. So two things happen that begins the process of conditioning. The first thing is, as children, sensitive beings, we're in this environment where there is some pain, whatever level of the range of pain. And so the first thing is we start learning all sorts of strategies and defense mechanisms to shut down, disconnect, and not feel the pain of what's going on around us as a survival mechanism. And so we shut down, disconnect, we disconnect from parts of ourselves to not feel the pain. And as a result, you know, we suppress feelings, we suppress emotions, we suppress the pain, and that unfelt feeling, that those unfelt emotions start to build layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. And before you know it, our light, our true essence is sort of hidden underneath the layers of unfelt feeling and emotion that we've learned to control and suppress in order to function and survive. And then we erect walls inside of our heart in order to not feel the pain. And then we also learn a way of being to go into the world, the sense of who do I need to be in order to get love and validation and approval from mom, from dad. Oh, if I'm nice, oh, if I'm sweet, if I'm kind. For me, I had to be the responsible one, the appropriate one, the good boy, the one who got all A's, the perfect son. And so we start developing all sorts of strategies and personas and roles and masks that we hold tightly onto, that gets reinforced by the world around us. And we hold tightly onto this way of being. We kind of contort ourselves into a shape to avoid pain and get love. And we end up thinking that this shape and pattern of conditioning that we've become, we end up thinking, this is me. And you often hear us saying, we've all said, nah, this is just who I am. Yeah. And we think that who we are is who we are, but we don't realize that we've become conditioned to avoid pain and get love. And the degree to which we are conditioned is the degree to which we are not free. And most of the time, part of the reason we stay stuck is because we're not conscious and we're not aware. We're just stuck inside of the pattern of conditioning. And what worked for us as a survival mechanism when we were 5 and we were 10 and we were 15 eventually stops working for us when we're 25 and 30 and 40, et cetera, et cetera. It eventually starts becoming a limitation. And I think most of us at some point of our lives, we hit a point where we learn to avoid pain a certain way. It worked for us, but now we're in a relationship, and now that same strategy to avoid pain and a way to never feel that again now starts getting in the way of our ability to let love in the way of our ability to express love fully. And so we hit that limitation. So the degree to which we're conditioned is the degree to which we're not really free to express and be ourselves. And so it's the conditioning process that happens out of survival that where we start losing touch with our innate essence, but it's always there.
When Kute was talking, I was thinking, yes, I was really conditioned to be nice, and niceness got me really far. And then it also was one of the reasons I had my eating disorder, because I wasn't being true to myself.
Yes.
And then I realized, oh, it's not nice. It's respect that I really care about. And so I still want to be nice because I believe in kindness so much, but it doesn't rule me. And Dotsie, I'm wondering if anything that Kute said resonated with you in terms of, you trying to conform so that you could get love, and it wasn't authentic.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about this, Kute, like, why as a child do we want to disconnect from the pain we're experiencing? Like, why aren't we kind of naturally conditioned to lean into the pain? And because that's then what we learn as adults. And I believe in leaning into the suffering, not away from it. And
For sure.
That's a whole nother. So are we just hardwired? Because Alexandra, to answer your question, I mean, the very first bit of real pain that I experienced was the story that I read on this podcast. That's part of my book about Dreamer, my horse being taken away, and there's details to it which I read. I don't need to go into, but it hurt my heart so bad, and you don't have the skills as a 9-year-old.
That's the thing, we don't have the skills.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We don't necessarily have the skills and the capacity as these sensitive beings to know fully how to process and handle it. Mm-hmm. And so these defense mechanisms, and sometimes the pain is so overwhelming, so unconsciously these defense mechanisms and strategies are just created as a way to cope and deal with that pain and that dysfunction around us. But also, I think so often we get conditioned to not feel our feelings. Dad might say, hey, don't cry. Mom might say, boys don't cry. Or you switch on the television, and even society and media says, hey, you feel pain? Don't feel the pain. Pop this pill. Take this drink. Eat this thing. Buy this thing. Don't feel the pain. And so we're kind of conditioned also as a culture to numb, to avoid, to distract, to disconnect from the feeling. And so I think over time, there becomes a conditioning where we're not versed in how to necessarily have a relationship with those feelings. And we end up feeling and thinking, wow, if I feel the feeling fully, it's going to be too painful. If I feel the feeling fully, it's going to never end. If I feel the feeling fully, it's going to break me. It's going to overwhelm me. It will never stop. And so by the time we're adults, we're not necessarily, we haven't cultivated that relationship to feel our feelings in an organic and a natural way before we get conditioned. I mean, I think if you look at little babies, right, they'll just cry. They'll just cry, and then they'll stop, and then they'll go about their day. They'll fall down, bump their head, and then it's over. It's done, But as adults, we'll cry, then we'll suppress it, and then we'll hold on to that stuff for the next 20 years, And then we'll spend our life punishing people in our lives for stuff that has nothing to do with those people, And so all feelings, so what we have to realize is that there's no good or bad feelings. Feelings are just energy. Feelings are just feedback. All feelings, no feelings are permanent. All feelings are temporary. All feelings are transitory. All feelings that are fully felt will dissolve. And when we don't feel our feelings fully, they don't really go anywhere. They just stay stuck inside of us, and they will often end up expressing in unhealthy ways. And so one thing that I found has helped me help my clients process feelings is sometimes we think that we're feeling our feelings. Like, I've been feeling this sadness forever. But what I found is many times people are thinking about their feelings and analyzing their feelings, but not necessarily truly authentically with awareness feeling their feelings. So one way to do that can be, if you just take the label off of the feeling, stop analyzing it, stop whying it, stop whatting it, stop judging it, and you take the label off of the feeling. Don't even call it sadness. Don't even call it anger. Don't even call it guilt or shame, but just notice where you feel that feeling as an energy and sensation in your body, as a sensation and energy in your body. And I think when you can take the label off, experience the sensation of the energy in your body, and notice what wants to happen, you'll start seeing that the feeling has a natural cycle. every feeling has a natural cycle and a natural layer that if we're with it fully without resistance, a layer begins to dissolve. And I think that's what it is to just be with one's feelings and feel it fully, you know. And I found that whenever I felt, for instance, my grief or pain fully, it doesn't last forever. And there is a natural cycle where that layer dissolves. And I think that's part of what it takes to truly, shall we say, heal and let go and deprogram ourselves.
That exact type of transformation, energetic experience, feeling an actual feeling in my body was the central and definitely most pivotal part of healing from anorexia. And then after I healed and was a professional athlete, I was sexually molested on the massage table at a race as a professional athlete. And by that point, I had built the skills, because to this day, when I look back on that, I had the ability to process it and move through it because I had worked on those skills. But what it really makes me realize is that is why we cannot hurt children and animals. We cannot do those things to them because they don't have the skill set. They don't even have the beginnings of the skill sets. Because I know a few people, as sadly, I'm sure we all do, who were abused as children. Yeah. And some are just never the same again, right? As maybe as they were when they were 5. And that's
because when that happens, we end up carrying that pain or that patterning in a certain way, and often the defense mechanisms that we build up have good intention, but those defense mechanisms that we build up are built in such a way so that I never feel this pain ever again. Yeah. And then we get locked into a certain shape of like, no. And now we end up going through life. The reason we're never the same often, and it doesn't have to be that way, but often the reason we're never the same is now when that thing happens and we're like, no. And now energetically in our psyche, in our consciousness, in our body, we go through life like this. We're never the same again, but this is designed as a defense mechanism so that I never feel this again. Yeah. And so I think it takes so much, as human being, it takes so much courage to be a human being, because we've all been through so much shit. We've all been through so much stuff as human beings. You know, just being a human, even without a great amount of trauma, takes courage. But if you've been through some stuff and there's been a violation, it takes so much courage to be willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to look at what's underneath my defense mechanism, because unless we do, we'll definitely never be the same again. But I just want people to know that it is possible to let go. Just even opening up the fact it's possible. It's not easy. It takes tremendous willingness, tremendous intention, tremendous courage to say, I'm willing to look at this way of being, this defense mechanism that has kept me safe. And I'm willing to look at what's underneath that so I can maybe begin feeling what's underneath that with support, with help, with a therapist, with a guide in some way.
What you're saying, it's like, and stop just sloughing off our own inner pain because we're comparing it to others, because we easily say, oh, well, I could be starving and whatever. This could be, no. There's wildly varying degrees of pain, right? Okay, yes, but it's your pain, and you still have to move through it to have a life that you want to live, to reach that transformation.
So important what you're saying, because there's so many, and I've worked with like hundreds of one-on-one clients over the years, and there's so many clients that have come to me doing exactly what you're saying. Because on a certain level, dad wasn't crazy. and mom didn't beat them, and life was okay. It was fine. And so there's this sort of denial that there was any pain. And in comparison with someone else who was beaten, who was traumatized, who was hurt, who was abandoned, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But unless we acknowledge those really subtle levels of pain, then there's a part of us that we don't have access to. There's a part of us that we don't truly allow ourselves to feel. And that's where we usually stay stuck in a certain way. And so I always say the degree to which we deny the pain, whatever level that is. And I think it's important that we give ourselves permission not to wallow, but to acknowledge the pain that we have for ourselves. And when the degree to which we deny the pain is also the degree to which we are not open to the joy on the other side and the happiness on the other side. And so many folks I've seen just sort of stay in this numb zone, of just blah or just okay, because I don't really feel pain, and so it's not a big deal. But then I also don't have the capacity to feel much joy and much happiness and true aliveness, because I'm not feeling and honoring the pain that is real and that has been real for me, that was normalized because that's all I knew. And so I think just to acknowledge those feelings and to honor those feelings and honor those parts of us that were in pain, that we just got used to and made normal, is so important. And that's part of the healing. That's part of the healing.
It is.
So you have clients who come to you and work one-on-one. You speak at seminars. You've written 2 books, The Magic of Surrender and You Are the One. What, after we access our pain and we feel it, like you say, what happens after that to rebuild us into the people we want to be? Like, how do we know who we want to be after we've been somebody for so long and it's kind of working?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think, at least what I found is, I think when we feel the pain and we let go of some of those layers of pain that we have been conditioned inside of, that we thought was who we were. And now as we let that go and realize, wow, I'm not that, wow. I don't think that, like I always tell people, be willing to not know who you are. Be willing to not know who you are. We're so sure about who we think we are.
And that's scary. That sounds scary.
It's scary because when we've learned to hold on to a way of being, even though it's not bringing us radical aliveness, it's work to keep us safe. And that's what we're used to. And the more we hold on to that, you could say that's the definition of ego, the degree to which we're identified. And the job of ego is to reinforce its existence and keep us safe. And so this position that we've learned to be in layers of pain is what we're used to, and we end up identifying with that and we think that's who we are. And so I always invite people, to your question, to just sit with, be willing to not know who you are, so that I believe the authentic nature of what we truly are is always there. Is always there. So we don't have to create it from the outside in. We don't have to manufacture it. It's more of to me, real freedom is a process of removing those layers through feeling and letting go. And then the willingness to apply loving and compassion. Like, real healing is the application of loving, just loving, empathy, compassion to those parts of ourselves that were hurting. And so if there's something we can do, it's applying love and forgiveness and compassion to those different aspects of ourselves that were previously hurting. And as we do that, healing starts happening. And I find that we don't have to make ourselves or create ourselves. The real authentic expression of our true self can begin to blossom and can begin to reveal itself and can begin to emerge naturally from the depth of our being authentically. And I think that's the beauty of true authenticity, is when you see someone not trying to be something. Oh, the book says, here are the 7 keys to how to be, but this is who I'm expressing from the inside. And I found that when we peel the layers away, the authentic, true us can start emerging, and I think it becomes more of an allowing and discovery process that is from the inside out. And I think that's the beauty, and that's what it is to be truly authentic. Yeah.
Will you walk us through? I love hearing about experiences or journeys and kind of examples. And I feel like your method of healing and growth and transformation happen in the liberation experience, where you travel with a client and you go one-on-one for a couple of weeks. What I would love an example of that, obviously, without naming any names, but
Sure.
what a story from what happens during this liberation experience for someone.
I'll give maybe a story, but I'd also love to combine it with maybe a kind of practical assignment, or should we say steps, where people might be able to begin.
Alexandra and I love assignments, don't we?
Okay.
We always do them. She's actually.
I'll give a little story that connects to what we were talking about, what we've been talking about so far. And I remember an amazing, this maybe 10, 11 years ago now, an amazing client. I had a woman client, and she came to me, amazing woman. I mean, this woman has been through more stuff than almost any human being I have ever met in my entire life. If I tell you this, and for me, when I meet a client like that, it just cracks my heart open, because I really feel like it's rare that I want to cry with a client, but because I'm more neutral in holding them in the sort of soul perspective. But when you feel what certain human beings have been through, and the courage it takes to just still be reaching for the light as a human being after you've been abused, and the list goes on. It's like the human spirit, like for me, she was an inspiration for me of the strength of the human spirit to keep rising up. And so she came to me. She went to India with me actually first, and then she got transformed. And then
she was your first experience.
She wasn't my first. She was my first. She was my second woman who went to India. I took 19 clients to India, one-on-one. Okay. And then so she got such a transformation that her husband, who was never into any of this woo-woo healing stuff, he's like, I want some of that. And so he comes to me and he says, it's always the women that go first and pave the way for us guys. And so kudos to the women. So he comes to me and he says, Kute, I've seen the transformation my wife has gone through. And he said to me, and this was a guy who, achieved a level of success to a degree, but he really wanted to create something that would impact the world and really make a difference on the planet. And he just felt like he was in a shell and wasn't able to fully express himself and build what he wanted at that level that he wanted to. So he came to me and he says, Kute, I feel stuck. I feel like I'm ready for a breakthrough, and can you help me? So I said, absolutely. So we sat down. The first thing I said to him, I remember, I looked him in the eyes, and he was a very timid kind of guy, and his wife was very outgoing and rambunctious and vivacious. So it's an interesting combination. And he said, look, I'm just a sort of shy, behind the scenes kind of guy. My wife is the one. I like being behind the scenes. I'm comfortable being behind the scenes. That doesn't have to change. And I looked at him and I said, that's BS. I said to him, you are a lion and you've been living like a mouse, and unintentionally you've been living a lie your entire life. You tell yourself you're shy and timid and behind the scenes, but I don't see that as the truth. And he was a little shocked because he didn't believe it. And so we went to India. I asked him some questions. I took him through some processes over.
Can I stop you? I've got a question. What did you see in him that showed you that he wasn't authentically wanting to live?
Yes, what I saw in him was a profound sadness in his eyes. Like a little, like the depth of his eyes. He wasn't crying when he spoke to me, but he had the eyes of sadness, of tears, that were full of tears that had not been acknowledged.
So
And
he was living small because of that
he
pain.
was playing small, he was living
Ah.
small, he was hiding behind his wife, he wasn't fully expressing himself. His wife was in the front and he was always in the back, and he said it was great and he was happy with it, but I could tell there was a profound sadness and a profound grief when I looked into his eyes, that he wasn't crying, but it was so evident to me. And that's why I said to him, you've been living a lie. And so when we were in India, he came to me on day one, and he said, Kute, you've said a few things to me. And he said, I haven't been able to stop crying for the last 24 hours. Because I gave them some homework assignments on, as we were on the journey. And I said, what happened? He said, I'm 55 years old. I haven't cried since I was 5.
Oh, God.
But there's some things there's some things you said to me that stirred some things inside of me. And I had a memory. And I said, tell me. He said, unbeknownst to me, I had a memory that I literally didn't even know. I had no recollection of a few hours ago. And he said, Kute, this is hard to say, but when I was 5 years old, I had this memory that I was molested. This 5-year-old kid went through this experience that clearly was a violation and shouldn't have happened in any circumstance. He was this innocent. Here was this innocent, vivacious, open, bright, alive kid. And this innocence was this light was taken, this innocence was taken advantage of. And what he didn't realize, he didn't even remember this event until the last few hours. And what he began to realize, and tears of grief, the sadness that I had felt, tears of grief began to stream down his face, and he couldn't stop for the next day. And it was the grief of the unfelt pain that he felt as a child, that he hadn't allowed himself to process, that he is so buried and shut so deep down inside, that what he began to realize was when this experience happened, when this very painful thing happened, unconsciously, he made up, not consciously, but unconsciously, he made up, it's not safe to be seen. Because when I'm seen, and when you see me, if you can see me, you can hurt me. And so unconsciously, what he made up as a strategy for the rest of his life was, if I'm quiet, shy, in the background, don't speak up, marry a woman, unconsciously marry a woman who is always in the front. Nothing wrong with it. But he started realizing how he had created his entire life unconsciously as a way to protect himself from getting hurt again. He'd been hiding his entire life, not because that was who he was. He'd been hiding his entire life as an unconscious strategy to avoid pain. And he saw that, wow, I have this thing that if you can see me, you can hurt me. And so I just hide. And he saw that what his hiding was really about. And so for him, it was really just like becoming aware and beginning to acknowledge for the first time and feel the grief, to feel this pain, to acknowledge that grief, to bring loving. Obviously it was a multi-layered process over some days, but it was really feeling the grieving, the heartbreak, the anger, the resentment, the shame, all of the feelings that were present, and beginning to bring loving to that little boy inside. And through the stages of this process, as he let go, there arose such a sense of freedom for him that he never felt before. And in terms of what happens, naturally in and of himself, with some time, he accessed a depth of freedom inside of himself. He accessed a depth of freedom that was always inside of him, that was just buried, that just began to express. And there was a power and an energy. And so it was really beautiful to see him naturally access the power that was always there. And so I think that just gives a bit of an example of the journey. But I promised a little assignment. And one assignment is this. One thing that I see as human beings keep us stuck, keep us from transforming, keep us from going to that next level, keep us from living our full potential, our dreams, are all the ways that we lie to ourselves. As human beings, we lie to ourselves. Mm-hmm. In so many ways, we stay in relationships that we know aren't right, we know isn't aligned. We work jobs that we know it's not really the reason for why we were born, and maybe we betray parts of ourselves to do it. And so I think in so many ways, from childhood, we've been conditioned to deny parts of our feelings, not consciously, unconsciously. We've been conditioned to betray parts of ourselves, survival, love, validation, approval. And so in many ways, as adults, we lie to ourselves and often don't even know that we're lying to ourselves. We're not necessarily conscious. And so I think there is no real transformation without truth. There is no real transformation without the willingness to tell ourselves the truth about who we are, about what we feel, about what we want, about what we need. And so the first question, as just a place to start, as just maybe a beginning for someone's process, is to begin asking yourself, what are the lies? Number one, what are the lies that I'm telling myself? The lies we tell ourselves are the ways that we keep ourselves stuck. And so what are the lies that I'm telling myself? As human beings, we have to want the truth more than we want what we have. We have to want the truth more than we want the comfort. Many times, I say that freedom isn't free. Freedom will require, true freedom will require that you let go of what's no longer aligned. See, the next level of our life, there could be freedom, could be joy, could be self-expression, could be career. The next level of our life requires the next level of us. The next level of us requires that we let go of what's no longer aligned. But as human beings, what we tend to do out of comfort, out of self-preservation, is we tend to hold on. And that holding on keeps us stuck. And so I just invite people to also take the pressure off of yourself in terms of the truth telling. To me, truth is real spiritual practice. Truth is real therapy. Truth is real spirituality. Truth is real yoga. If we truly tell the truth, feel the truth, acknowledge the truth, speak the truth, live the truth, life will transform. And so I just say to people, take the pressure off of yourself from even having to take action. Because sometimes the pressure we put on ourselves to take action creates a sort of defense mechanism of confusion. We're often afraid, oh shit, if I tell the truth, I'm going to have to leave my relationship. I'm going to have to leave my job. And so I'm kind of confused. I don't really know what I really want. And deep down, we know. Most of the time, there is a part of us at the deepest level that knows something's not right, that knows this isn't right. And so even if it's just, I'm not going to take action. Okay, there's no pressure. I don't have to leave. I hate my job. You don't have to leave your job. Just acknowledge it, because maybe you have bills to pay and kids and responsibilities. I hate my job. And just begin feeling the process of the truth burning inside. I'm no longer in love with this person I've been with for 5 years. Mm-hmm. That's scary. Like, whoa, it's terrifying. Just feel that. You don't have to divorce. You don't have to leave. You don't have to break up. But just feel the process of what the truth starts doing and how it starts marinating in your heart, and allow that process. So what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? Because sometimes the confusion, like, oh, I don't know what my purpose is, is kind of a protection mechanism of safety. Because if I am confused and I don't really know what my purpose is, I don't have to take action. I can always remain in the safety of having the hope of the future fantasy. And so what am I pretending to not know? To me, the third question people can ask is, what is the pain? What is the cost of the lies I'm telling myself? And to allow yourself to feel the pain, to feel the pain. Many times we feel the pain.
Yeah, because at face value, you don't know the cost. Like if you just ask that question and you're in pain, you don't know what the cost is. You have to find it.
Feel the pain.
Yeah.
feel the pain of the lies that you're telling yourself of staying in this relationship that you know isn't right for 10, 15, 20, 17, however many. Feel it, because often as human beings, we feel the pain. And we're like, oh, I feel pain, this is pain, this is pain, this is pain, this. We rationalize it away, this is pain. We drug it away, drink it away, sex it away, smoke it away, social media away, shop it away, work it away, whatever, to not feel the pain. But pain is there for a reason. To me, pain isn't good or bad. It's a gift. It's your friend. It's feedback. Pain isn't the issue. It's how we use the pain, because the pain can show us where we're betraying ourselves. When we lie to ourselves, it's meant to be painful. It's not meant to feel good. The pain is actually a sign that we're healthy. It's like if there's a fire in my house and the fire alarm goes off, to me, this is a good thing. This is a sign that the fire alarm is working. And so we tend to ignore the fire alarm. And so I think if we're able to just acknowledge the pain, be with the pain, feel the pain, it starts a process inside, And so when we don't acknowledge the pain, that pain always, when we don't acknowledge the truth, that pain always manifests. It manifests in your body as a physical ailment, as an ongoing physical disease. It will manifest in your emotions, sometimes as ongoing depression. And many times we don't even know, like, why do I feel this pain? The pain is a signal. The pain is a messenger. And so ask yourself, what is the message of this pain? What am I denying? What am I not acknowledging? And what truth, what deeper truth do I need to acknowledge? To me, the truth is what sets us free. As a kid, as in my teens, as an 18-year-old kid, I had to start by telling the truth to myself. If I didn't tell the truth, I would probably still be living my father's version of my life. Yeah. And so many of us, we end up living someone else's version of our life or relationship, and we wonder, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I not happy? And so the truth will set us free. And I think that's a place that we can start.
That's great. Thank you. Can you repeat the three things again, the three assignments?
What lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? And what is the lies I'm telling myself costing me? And that is the feeling, the willingness to feel it. It's when we numb that pain and distract ourselves that allows us to stay in situations, to stay in a marriage, to stay in a circumstance for years, for much longer than we really should, for much longer than is healthy, Then when we do that and we finally leave, then we have to process the anger and the frustration and the pain of our own self-betrayal, which is a deeper level of pain. And so truth is to me, it sounds simple, but because of the patterns of how our conditioning and our defense mechanism, it's not always as easy. But I really believe that if you really want to transform your life, truly transform your life, if you start speaking the truth and telling the truth and expressing the truth, living the truth, life will radically begin transforming. Yes, you will lose people. Yes, things will shift out of your life, and that can be scary. But what I found is who you lose and what moves out of your life probably was not truly authentically aligned with who you are today anyway.
Right off of what you said and staying right in line with this truth, this honesty, this acknowledgement. One of your books is the magic of surrender. Yeah. What is the difference between acceptance and surrender? Because oftentimes we say to ourselves and others, accept it and move on. Just accept it and move on.
Yeah. It's a very good question. Acceptance. And I want to define surrender in a second, but acceptance, not necessarily surrender. Acceptance is when you accept what is. Just accept what is. It is what it is. And many of us, we get to a place of, okay, my spouse is what that he is or she is. He is what he is. She is what she is. I hate it. I don't like it. I'm mad about it, but it is what it is. But there still can be a part of us in the process of acceptance that's a little pissed off, that's a little bit resentful, right? Like, damn it, it's raining outside. Damn it, they are what they are. And so I'll accept it, but I don't like it. And I'm not going to fully give myself, but I'll accept it. And I'm not going to leave, but I'll accept it. So acceptance is not surrender. Surrender is the open-hearted, the full open-hearted participation in the process of life, in the process of that experience. Acceptance is not the closed, participation. Surrender is the open-hearted participation in the process. And I think what helps, at least what has helped me and what's helped many folks, is realizing it's not always, because some situations are unfair, some situations are difficult, some situations are painful, some situations are just downright hurtful. And so it's not even a surrender to the situation. It's a surrender to learning the lesson inherent in every situation. If you realize that you are a soul, and you're a soul that's incarnated into this human experience, life itself is the school for your soul's evolution. And if you can see life as a school and you see yourself as a soul, then every experience becomes the classroom and curriculum for your soul's evolution. Rather than resisting, the surrender becomes, okay, with my spouse, what is this person reflecting to me right now? What, I don't like it, but there must be a reason I'm going through this. There must be a learning opportunity. And so what is the mirror? What is the lesson? What can I learn? All lessons are repeated until learned. And when we can truly see life from a soul perspective, then we don't have to like the lesson. We don't have to like the way the lesson is learned, the way the lesson is given to us, but we can surrender to learning the lesson with who we're with, when we're there. When we learn the lesson, that's when I found that we either free ourselves up, and then we can move into surrender to find a different way of participating in the situation. And when we do that, either the situation shifts, we shift, or we graduate and transcend that experience and begin attracting a new kind of experience. Just clarifying surrender, I think in our culture, there is a misconception of surrender. We often see surrender as weak, as surrender as passive. Surrender is giving up, that if you surrender, you might not manifest your goals, dreams, and desires, that if you surrender, you're going to get less than. And I'm really just saying, if you truly surrender, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? And that surrender is letting go of control or controlling the things that aren't in your control. That surrender is when you stop trying to force and manipulate life to fit into your limited idea of what you think it should be. Surrender is an allowing. Surrender is an openness. Surrender is an availability. Surrender is a curiosity. Surrender is when you let go of the idea of who you think you should be and the idea of how you think life should be, so that you can be truly open to the life, the authentic life that is seeking to express, which is often, I think when we surrender, we transcend ourselves. And what often ends up happening is more than we could even imagine for ourselves. And I think that's the magic and the beauty of surrender.
May I ask you about empowerment?
Sure.
Because especially for women, I feel like I know I'm afraid of pain, but I'm also, for a long time, was very afraid of my own power. How do you help people access their power and their potential and not be afraid to do that? Because it is scary.
Yeah, I think it is scary. And I think many times part of it can go back to conditioning and looking at what were the associations maybe growing up around power that we grew up with, because sometimes maybe I'm not saying this is you, but when someone was powerful, they were judged, or they grew up with certain references of what a woman should be like, or mom should be like, or for instance, I'll give you a quick example. I had a client, beautiful woman. She came to me and she had this exact thing of, I'm afraid of my power. And she didn't really know, well, she said she didn't really know why, but I felt she did, right? And so I don't really know why. I feel so powerful inside, but I'm kind of afraid of my power, and I'm afraid of owning my power. And so as we, it takes some time. I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer. It takes some time. So we started massaging and exploring some of her life and some of her experiences and some of the ways that her experiences shaped her a view and her association of what power meant for her, because for her, power meant something differently than what it might mean for someone else. And so what she confessed as we explored, and I think everyone can start exploring their unconsciousness, what she confessed, and she says, Kute, I have never acknowledged this to anyone. And what she told me was, when I was, I think it was 13 years old, she said, I lost the use of my legs. Like something happened physically, medically, that she lost the use of her legs for a few, basically she said 6 months. During that time, Dad, who was always gone, never had time, was in the hospital every day. Came every day, came every day, came every day. She got so much attention from the world, from people, especially from her dad, who she felt neglected by. And she said, Kute, I couldn't walk for 6 months. But she said, the truth that I've never told is it was really only for about 3 months. And she said, exactly.
She
and she said,
she pretended that because she got so much from it.
She pretended. And so unconsciously for her, there was a part of her that couldn't really afford to be truly powerful and step into her power and be powerful and fully expressed and, just independent, because when she didn't get any attention. But when she was kind of weak and collapsed and not as powerful, when she got her attention. And so for her, that association in her own unconscious of power and what that meant, power for her meant no love, no connection with my father. And so her avoidance of her power was her way to get attention, to get validation, to get support, until she began to become conscious and question that and rewire that. And so I think it's important that we all look at what is our association with power? What is our association with love? And then begin realizing, wow, many of the ways that we go about life is often a way to avoid pain or get love, validation, and approval.
Yeah.
To make people feel comfortable, to make people feel safe so that they love us, to make people feel not threatened. I think it's really important that we just start exploring in our own consciousness, what is it for us? What is the internal conflict, and what is the payoff that we get by not owning our power? So these are just some things we can begin to explore. But look, as I was saying to someone the other day, as woman, as the feminine, you're powerful.
Yeah.
You look, I'm not sorry to say, actually, you are the source of life. The feminine, you are the source of existence, every human being, all of life, whether you're physically given birth or you haven't, has emerged from you. You have the capacity for creation. I think for so long, society has been afraid of the power of woman.
Oh, yeah.
Society has been afraid of the power of the feminine. And it's time that the feminine rise up in that feminine power and recognition, because the feminine is like the ocean. You are like the freaking ocean. You are the ocean. You have an infinite capacity for feeling, for emotion, for intuition, for creativity, for orgasm, for just infinite capacity. The masculine, we're the truth is we're like a little sailboat in the ocean. And so I think as woman, as you realize, your own power, the whole world starts lighting up, because for so long, I think, I'll say it, the masculine has been afraid of the power of the feminine. So what we have tried to do patriarchally is control and suppress and manipulate and burn and push down and cover up the light of what you are. And many women have bought into this programming themselves, and as a result, learn to deny their own feminine power, their own feminine creativity, their own feminine light, their own feminine magic to fit in and to be loved and validated and be safe and be loved by men and be loved by the world. And I just want to say to all the women listening, and maybe you today, doesn't serve anybody, doesn't serve the world, and it definitely doesn't serve the masculine. And so let your light shine, sister.
Thank you.
Be small.
So, yeah, exactly. Tell us where our audience can find you.
Especially the women, because they're going to want some more Kute in their life. Now that we're ending on this.
Thank you.
Yes, and your new book that just came out.
Yes, the new book that just came out, The Magic of Surrender. Go to Amazon. It's out on paperback, so go to Amazon, get it there. May the 3rd, it came out. May the 7th, I'm going to do something special. May the 7th, I did a very special live event for those that pre-ordered the paperback, but I'm going to make the recording available to anyone that listened to this podcast. So if you go to Amazon, then go to www.kuteblackson.com/reinvent seminar, enter your name, your email, and your receipt info. We'll send you a bunch of free gifts plus the recording. Just send us an email, even though it's afterwards. We'll make sure you get that. My main website, kuteblackson.com, Instagram, Facebook, Kute Blackson. Those that want to maybe go on a deep dive, I do a 12-day event in Bali, and it's called Boundless Bliss Bali, www.boundlessbliss.com.
When is that? Is that coming up?
Yeah, that's July the 25th through I think August the 5th, and then again in December.
It's been really, really transformational to talk. Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.